G'day guys, so I've got myself a carbon winch. Pretty excited. Well, this weekend I'm going down south and I kind of wanted to have something with me because I normally end up needing one when I'm down there. So I've gone for the carbon winch for a couple of reasons really. Number one, if you look there you can see the hook. Yeah, it's red. Red happens to be my favourite colour. Reason number two, if you see the rope there, it's also red. Also happens to be my favourite colour. No, but seriously, a few reasons I went for this winch. It's one of the few winches on the market. I mean, there's a couple of companies out there that do have pretty good warranties, but this company, Carbon Winches, they will cover their products even if there's water ingress in them, which is pretty rare. And also on top of that, it's a 5-year warranty, which is pretty massive. So to me, that's a company that believes in their products and knows that they're going to last. So that's a pretty good reason for me to get one. Apparently they're also one of the lightest winches on the market, so I've probably saved myself a whole kilo or something. But yeah, there's a couple of reasons. Another thing, they also come with a wireless remote, and they also come with a snatch block in the whole kit as well, which is pretty cool. So let's get started, eh? I'm going to show you guys how to install a winch. There's not really that much to it. So this is the fourth winch I've installed. I installed the first winch on the Bravo, then I've also installed a couple of winches for mates along the way, and there's not really that much to it. It's not as hard as you think. Hey, that's another reason I actually got this winch. It comes standard with a breather. So in my first winch I had a lot of issues with water ingress, so I actually ended up plumbing in my own breather, and that was another reason I went for this one, like I said, because it comes with one. Because from what I understand, what happens is when the motor obviously runs, it gets hot. So you've got pressure in there because of the heat and the cooling down. So as it's cooling down, it could actually suck in water. So that's another good thing about having a breather. It equalizes the air pressure in there. So the hardest part of installing a winch is actually figuring out where to put the damn control box. Now sometimes you can, in some bull bars, just have it literally mounted on top of the winch. I don't think that's going to work in this case, so I've got to figure out somewhere else to put it. Oh, that's a pretty winch. So the first thing you're going to have to do when you're installing a winch is figure out how it mounts in the bar. On some bars you actually have to physically take the bull bar off, and then there's a winch mount bracket that sits behind it. On other cars like this one, it just bolts straight onto the bull bar. And then depending on the bull bar, sometimes you can actually just slip it straight through by just removing a bash plate. And then on other bull bars, yet again you have to take it off, install it in the bull bar, and then put it back on. Now when I was looking at this when I first got the car, I'm pretty sure there should be enough room to slip it straight in my case, so that's going to make the installation a stack easier. I should have washed the car after forward driving last weekend, because now sand's going everywhere. Let's see. Oh, come on. I feel like if it wasn't for the winch rope, it would actually get in there. It's looking more and more like a bull bar off job. Well, nighttime beat me to it, unfortunately, but I've got a new plan. So I won't bore you guys too much with what I got to do to actually get the winch in there, but virtually I'm going to take this little plate off. There are 5 big bolts that hold the bull bar on, but I'm going to leave 1 bolt in on each side. Hopefully then I can just tilt the bull bar a little bit forward, hopefully without taking out anything up there, chuck the winch in, and then hopefully that'll work. I think that went pretty well. So I just left 2 bolts in there, and I've managed to move it about a finger width, which is probably just all I need to get the winch in there. So let's hope it fits now. But before we try to put the winch in there, there's one thing that you got to do before you actually mount your winch there. So if you can figure this out before the winch is there, it makes life a lot easier later on, because then you don't have to rip it back out. Alright, so what you got to do at this stage is figure out which way your winch is going to sit. So in my case, the winch is going to sit in the bar like that. So as you'll notice, the actual clutch system that disengages and engages the clutch that holds the gears is in the wrong direction. So what you need to do is change it. So there's Allen key bolts here, so what you got to do is undo all of them, take this whole gear hub off, twist it to where you want the handle to face, and then put all the Allen keys back in. So what you want to do is hold it where the winch is going to sit approximately in the bar. Look at what holes you've got. So you guys can't see it, but there's a hole just like this over this side, so you can quite easily fit your hand in there. So I'll be slipping my hand down here to engage and disengage the clutch once the winch is in there. So the winch is going to sit in the bar like this. So all I'm going to do, just so that I don't forget, is just mark. Actually, I don't need to mark there. Just need to mark here. That's where I want the handle to be. So yeah, it's going to sit like that. Front of the car's that way. I'm going to mount my solenoid box just here. So that's all good to go. So you got to just get the Allen keys and undo all the screws. Oh mate, can you believe it? Right one first shot. That never happens. Alrighty. So all I've done there is just remove all of the bolts, turn it to where I want the handle to be, and now you just virtually bolt it back all up together. So it's not really that difficult. But yeah, definitely worth doing this before you get too carried away actually fitting the winch, because yeah, I don't know, you wouldn't be able to do it later, I reckon. Awesome. So now when the winch sits in the bull bar like that, I'll actually be able to put my hand through the bull bar to engage and disengage the clutch. I've got to say, I really like the clutch on this thing, hey. Like, they've got a bit of an innovative design going, and it's cool because a lot of the clutches you actually have to do a full 180. While this, you know, you can only just get your fingers through and just flick. I really like that. So as far as how the winches actually bolt up, what it is there's a square nut, and that actually just slips into a little slot just there. So there's 4, 1 for each bolt, and that just slits in there, and then you put your bolt through your bull bar, or through your mount, however your bull bar's set up. So the bolt goes in there, which meets up with that square nut. So if I actually manage to get the winch in, that's what I'll be doing. Alrighty, also in case I actually manage to get the winch in, I just find that having a strap around the winch actually definitely helps to hold it there when you're doing this by yourself. Otherwise you're holding 30 odd kilo in the air, which isn't too comfy. Alright, go on. Woo! That's the way. Alright, so I'm just resting the winch, and this is where the strap really comes in, because otherwise there's no way you'll get around to put the bolts in. So if you got a second person at this point, it makes life so much easier. Cool. So yeah, that's why I like using a strap when you're doing it by yourself, because if you actually manage to get it up in position, then it's pretty simple. You just tighten up the strap, and that's actually sitting pretty much exactly where I need it to. So feeding the bolts through should be a breeze. Hopefully. Bit of a random tip, but when you get your first forward drive, or you start going out forward driving, one of the first little mods you should do is actually tack or bolt your number plate in 4 points, especially the front one, because the front ones always, they'll catch water under here when you're going through creek crossings or mud holes or anything, and eventually it'll just bend up, the metal will fatigue along here where the bolts are until it falls off, and then you're up for a new set of plates. And if you got personalised plates, you're really going to be stealing. So now that I've got the top ones holding the top of the winch, I can take the bottom bolts back out, because we actually need to put our fair lead on. Now I've got to say, this is such a clever fair lead, so depending whether you need it this way or that way, because on some bull bars you need it to be a bit higher from where the bolt holes are, or some you need it a little bit lower. So that is just ridiculously clever, because you can change it around from top to bottom. Alright, I got to give Carbon Winch another brownie point, because this is usually where you come unstuck, because you add the fair lead, which in there you're probably adding about, I'd say 8 to 10 mil, And so then the standard bolts that you get don't work. So on the last winch I actually had to go and buy some new ones. They actually just give you them straight out of the box. So all you got to do is take the washers off and you're rolling. Man, how good's that? Don't you love it when you can't find what you're looking for? Oh, there it is. Alright. Well, theoretically that's the actual winch itself installed. Just got to do these bolts up. You probably want to do them fairly tight considering they're going to be pulling the full weight of the car, or even more at times when you're up a hill. So just going to tighten them up. As I mentioned, the hardest part of the whole job is trying to find where to mount the solenoid, so I've decided to bolt it to the winch with the mounts that came with it. And these do come with a wireless remote controller. I don't know if I mentioned that before, and I can still access the port for the wired remote. So as far as the actual wiring goes, it's pretty simple. So there's 3 short cables that go from the solenoid to the motor on the winch, and there's also a little thin one as well. And then from there, there's a big long earth cable that goes from the earth on the motor to the battery negative. And then you also have a long red cable that runs from the solenoid to the battery. So there's not a whole lot to wiring in winches. So yeah, this part's pretty simple because the terminals on the motor are all color coded, yellow to yellow, black to black, red to red, and then you've just got a short little earth to the side of the motor here, and then your earth that runs from there to the negative on your battery, and then this over here is your positive from the battery. So as far as wiring these in, there's not that much to them. They're pretty straightforward. So all I got left to wire in is the positive and the negative. So I'm just trying to run them nicely through the grill here, and I'm just about to put some split tubing on them because there's going to be a few exposed edges, unfortunately. Alrighty, here we go. Let's start this thing up. Alright. Whoa. Oh, at least guess that means it works. Oh yeah, that definitely means it works. Sick. So there's not a whole lot to installing the winches. I mean, the wiring's pretty straightforward. All you got to do is follow the booklet, and you don't even have to really do anything besides just tighten up a few nuts for the wiring. So it's awesome like that. So all I got left to do is install the breather. And also, when you get a new winch, one thing you got to do, you can't actually, like, I couldn't go out forward driving and just pull it out and use it straight away, because what will happen is it'll all coil up. So what you really need to do is go out, extend the full length. One thing that I never understand, maybe someone can explain it. If you understand, chuck it in the comments below, but when you've got your recovery hook, for some reason people like to hook it to their recovery points down here. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I get stuck, I'm always bellied out here. So you get stuck, you want to use your winch, and your hook's buried in the mud underneath your car. So I just don't get why people do that. Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing getting bogged in a grass field, but you know, it does happen. So just pulling out the winch for the first time. I'm going to hook it up to this tree over here. I'm going to put the handbrake on slightly, and then I'm just going to slowly bring the car in. You got to remember that the winches aren't made to be used constantly, if that makes sense. What do they call it? Duty cycle, that's the one. They don't have a constant duty cycle. So this is a 30-meter cable, so I'm probably going to do it in about 3 sections. I just had a look to see what the voltage was going down to when the winch was operating. It was going down to 11.8, so it's taken a fairly decent hit on the battery, hey. So that's why you want to do it progressively, because the winch motor can't handle it. Also, your alternator can't actually keep up with the amount of amps that you're taking out. And I actually had a car die once because I used the winch too long. Alrighty, awesome stuff. So the last 5-10 meters, you don't really have to worry too much about keeping the tension on the winch, because you're always going to pull that out to use it virtually, so don't have to worry too much. But the first couple of spools, you want them to be nice and tight so the winch rope can't actually dig in between them all, because I've had it happen before my car went sideways off the track, my winch got caught up, and man, we had to sit there trying to get it undone, so it's just painful. But anyway, that's pretty much winches, so hope you guys learnt a thing or two about winch installation and get out there and use them, eh? Yeah man, I got a winch. I also picked up some new tyres today. These are the Nitto Trail Grapplers. So I've heard a lot of good things about these tyres, so I can't wait to test them out this weekend, see how they go, and see how they go long term too. The guy at the tyre shop said they're a complete pain in the bum because the sidewalls are so thick, so that's got to be saying something.
Oh, he's going to launch it.
Yeah.
Oh no!
What happened there? And then you can look on the back, and as he drives, pull him across.
Yeah.
What we need to do is get the front end over. Yeah. And then we'll keep the winch on the back and pull him across as he drives.
Alrighty, so the rough plan is we got my car down there with a winch to pull him sideways. Then we got the strap coming up here, winch extension, and we're going to do a triple line pull. So hopefully the winch is going to have enough power to at least get him a bit forward, and then we'll get him back on the track, hopefully. So cool, but so much rigging.
Go over and land on my bonnet.
I got tension on his back, so if we want to try and move forward now.
I'll have a bit more if you can, Roger. If we turn around and do the opposite now, get Roger to go backwards while you pull him across, and Joel releases on the front.
Joel can just slow the release, and then I'll start pulling him back as he comes back.
And Roger will have to reverse at the same time. You have to straighten his wheels up a bit, but you'll nearly drive that. Stop them.
Yeah, he's out of there.
Come forward more, John.
That's it.
Going on that side. Yeah, pretty good.